Good morning, FCBC Church family. It's Pastor Tom again, coming to you with another vlog on this, as some call it Holy Week, some call it Passion Week. It's basically just a week that I wanted to show you in Scripture the account of what Jesus goes through up to the cross. And so today is Tuesday, of course. And on Sunday, we talked about Palm Sunday. That's the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. And yesterday, we talked about the account of when he goes into the temple and he drives out those people who were selling things and the money changers, and he drove them out. And so this is a perfect time for him to teach. And so today, I call this day, this is just me. I've named these days just myself. There's nothing in Scripture that calls them this, but it's Teaching Tuesday. I call it Teaching Tuesday because Jesus actually is in the temple and he's teaching. And so after he leaves the temple, we'll see he teaches his disciples as well. So we are going to go through this account. I just want to read the Matthew account, just the first part where Jesus is being questioned. And his authority is being questioned. The whole account is chapters long. And so I'll give you where you can find these so you can go throughout your day and maybe check these out on your own. So the account in Matthew comes in Matthew chapter 21, verse 23 through chapter 26, verse 5. And then in the Gospel of Mark, it's Mark 11, verse 27 through chapter 14, verse 2. And then you find it in Luke chapter 20, verses 1, all the way through chapter 22, verse 2. And then you see it in the Gospel of John, chapter 12, verse 37 through verse 50. And so today I'm just going to read the account where Jesus is being questioned, his authority is being questioned, and we'll see how that turns out for these chief priests and elders as they're asking him these questions. So we're going to be in, verse 23 of chapter 21 of Matthew, and I'm going to read all the way up to 27. It says this: When he entered the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him while he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things, and who gave you this authority?" Jesus said to them, "I will also ask you one thing, which if you tell me, I will also tell you by what authority I do these things." Verse 25, "The baptism of John was from what source? From heaven or from men?" And they began reasoning among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say to us, then why did you not believe him? But if we say from men, we fear the people, for they all regard John as a prophet." And answering Jesus, they said, "We do not know." He also said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." So we see Jesus, after this little confrontation with the chief priests and elders, that he goes into a teaching time. He teaches through the parables of the two sons of the landowner, of the marriage feast. You can see that in chapter 22, 1 through 14. And then after that, the Pharisees try to test Jesus about bringing up a poll tax. And if you remember, in chapter 22, verses 21 and 22, this is what Jesus says back to them. He says this, they said to him, "Caesar's." Then he said to them, "Then render what to Caesar and the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." And hearing this, they were amazed, and leaving him, they went away. And so Jesus didn't take the hook or the bait for this question about the poll tax to Caesar. So again, Jesus is still teaching. And then in chapter 23 here, I just licked my finger. That's not good. Don't do that. Don't touch your face in this time of COVID virus. But anyways, in chapter 23, we see Jesus expose the Pharisees for who they are. They're hypocrites, and they preach, but they don't do. And so we see that all throughout Scripture, even through Paul's account in Galatians and Ephesians. We see all of this where there's Pharisees and the people that preach but they don't actually do the things that they preach. My dad used to say they don't walk their talk, for sure. So we see that the Pharisees are exposed, and then all of a sudden we see these 8 woes come in. Jesus comes in and says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees! Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees! You're hypocrites! Woe to you, blind guides!" And he goes through all of these woes, and then at the end there, he talks about the lament, which is, the lament over Israel is an expression, or a passionate expression, of great grief and sorrow, the sorrow over Israel. And I was reading about the word lament, and sometimes it comes by way of like beating your chest because you're so sorrowful, and you're so, it's just a passionate expression of sorrow. And then in chapter 24, we see Jesus leave the temple. He leaves the temple and he talks to his disciples, and he goes through the destruction of the temple. He goes through the signs of the end of the age. In Matthew 24:30, there's the glorious return of Christ, the Son of Man, and then he talks about no one knows the day or hour. And then in chapter 25 of Matthew, he talks about the parable of the 10 virgins, the parable of the talents, and then he talks about final judgment. And I want to read in chapter 26 here, which is the starting of the plot to kill Jesus. And it says this, chapter 26, verses 1 through 5, it says this: "When Jesus had finished all of these words," he just got done talking to his disciples, "he said to his disciples, 'You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man is to be handed over for crucifixion.' Then the chief priests and elders of the people were gathered together in the court of the high priest named Caiaphas, and they plotted together to seize Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they were saying, 'Not during the festival, otherwise a riot might occur among the people.'" And we know, as we're going through this time in Scripture of Jesus' life, and to see that Tuesday, this day, this is his last day to teach in the temple. This is his last time he publicly teaches in the temple as a free man. And his words on this day are is basically his closing argument, his manifesto. He's done in the temple. And so when Jesus leaves the temple on Tuesday, we see that the chief priests and elders and scribes try to seek to arrest him by stealth and to kill him. And we know that Jesus doesn't defend himself. He by his silence, he offers up his life for the blasphemers, the hypocrites, the traitors, the liars, and anybody that you can think of. Jesus lays his life down for. And so in this Tuesday that we're talking about Jesus teaching, let us remember that this is the last time Jesus teaches in the temple up to his crucifixion. And so as we get into this time of just wrapping our mind around what Jesus is doing, he's getting ready. He's getting ready for the crucifixion. Jesus knows that it's coming. And we know that if, in the beginning 10, 12 chapters of John, there's a couple lines, a couple pieces of scripture that says it wasn't his time yet. Jesus went and hid himself because his hour has not come. And so his hour is coming. And we see this on Friday on the crucifixion, and we're going to go through that as well as a church family. And I hope that as we go through this each day, we get our mind wrapped around what Jesus goes through leading up to Friday. And so today's Tuesday, Teaching Tuesday. And if you remember, just to think about today, think about how Jesus is in the temple teaching. This is a perfect opportunity for him. And again, if you want to see these accounts in the Gospels, I'll put them in our Facebook description for you. And I encourage you guys to go through these scriptures. I know there's a lot of chapters in there, but take the time to read today Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John's account on this Teaching Tuesday. Some of them have different, and not different, but unique ways of writing this account out. So I encourage you. I hope this is encouraging. We got Palm Sunday, we've got Cleansing Tuesday. Today we have Teaching Tuesday, and tomorrow we're going to see the plot thicken. So bear with me, stay with me, and I hope everybody is well and are liking going through these. And if there's anything that we can do for you as elders in the church, let us know. We love you guys. Again, we miss you guys, and we hope you're staying well, you're staying safe, and hope to see you guys soon. All right? Have a good rest of your day. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.